Hi, I'm Cassie, host of the Love and Healing Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button to follow us and receive new episodes each week. If you really enjoy the podcast and you're feeling generous, please hit the donate button. We work hard to create original content and keep the podcast ad-free. Today's guest is a licensed professional counselor in Fort Worth, Texas, focused on supporting clients through emotional disturbance. She handles concerns in an environment that feels safe and is sex positive. Please welcome Janice Leonard to the podcast. Hi, Janice. Welcome to the Love and Healing Podcast.
Hi, Cassie. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited to have you on. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about what's going on in our bodies when we're in the throes of passion or sex or even just intimacy. What's happening with our minds, our bodies?
Yeah, that is such a beautiful question. And it's a packed one, too.
Yes.
Because, first of all, I think we need to understand why we're having sex. And I think that flows right into what's happening in our bodies. So we know if it is something pleasurable. And also, we want to make sure that we are consenting to what is happening for us. So I would be remiss if I didn't touch on the principles of sexual health, which is consent, non-exploitative, honest, shared values, protected from STI, HIV, and unwanted pregnancy, and pleasure. So once we've understood the principles, I think then we can start looking at what kind of sex are we talking about? Because there are lots of different ways to have sex,
Yes.
and often I think we are raised with this idea that sex is for, it's P and V and it is for
Yes.
reproduction, right? But we've moved too far away from, with the advent of birth control and all of that, we've moved far away from that, the idea that sex is solely for reproduction. So, there are lots of different sex. So of course, we know vaginal, there's oral, there's anal, there's fingering, hand jobs, dry humping, genital rubbing, self-pleasuring, masturbation. So I think once we understand why we're having sex, making sure that the principles are in line, and then why we're having sex, what kind of sex we're having, then we can really get into what's happening to our bodies, And I think a lot of us know that during sex, we're releasing all the happy hormones, right? The oxytocin, those love hormones, we call it. We know all of that is happening. And we know that our blood vessels, they're widening, they're dilated. So we're receiving all of what's happening in the moment. And of course, sensitivity skyrockets. And I know for some persons, they're not so in tune with what's happening in the moment. So it's important to really be present. And we talk a lot about mindfulness in sex therapy, because for a lot of persons, sex is not that pleasurable. It's like another chore. It's something that we just get through because I'm married to this person and that's the expectation, which is really sad when it gets to that point. So a lot of what I do with clients and what I hope for the people around me is that we can be connected and we can surely enjoy what we're doing. And of course, making sure that we have talked and we've compromised on what is pleasurable for us, right? Because you might like one thing and I might like another. And, we need to make sure that both of our needs are being met if we are deciding to do this, right?
Right.
Of course, we're burning calories, right? A lot of people don't think of sex as a workout, but you can certainly burn a lot of calories if you're having a certain amount of sex during the day or during the week.
Depends how crazy it's getting, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And our heart is racing, our muscles are tense. And of course, we want to feel relaxed, and that goes back to what we want to feel when it's all done, right? You want to feel relaxed. You want to feel good. And I get it. There are some people who don't make orgasm the primary objective. We're just have one experience. Maybe it can be that. But for people who might want to achieve an orgasm, I think making sure that you even communicated what gets you there. And I think that's where I really stress on the idea of self-pleasuring, because that's where you learn what helps you get to orgasm, and you can guide your partner, because now I feel like in a lot of relationships that is not communicated, and then we have that resentment building up because we've never talked about what gets me there, and maybe this person is still trying to figure it out.
Right. We think
Right, because we
they
don't
can
have a
read our
manual.
mind. Yeah.
Exactly. And I hate when that happens. And I think with the work we do in therapy, we're helping partners have more conversation about these things that often
Mhm.
we pass over when we're dating. We think it's not important to talk about.
Yes.
So I hope
Yeah.
that answers the question. I know that was packed.
Yes. And I was thinking that, that can tend to create the frustration. They're going into this sexual encounter
Yep.
knowing that we want to please the other person, but we also want to make sure we're pleasing ourselves.
Yes.
We're expecting a dual outcome. And I
Mhm.
think if we're expecting our partner to just figure that out by roaming and touching, and we're not
Mhm.
communicating what we like and what we don't like,
Yeah.
it just sets it up for a frustrating event. I think the sex therapy is so important. Relationship therapy is important because it can help teach
Mhm.
you how to have those conversations. And most of us grow up
Exactly
with
right.
that.
Mhm.
Don't talk about sex. It's
Yeah.
dirty unless it's sexy and you're in the bedroom. And you're like, well, it's
Mhm.
such a confusing
Yeah.
message to get as you're growing up. I want to talk a little bit about after sex, when
Mhm.
we've come off of that, or our bodies are in that like elevated oxytocin, we're in this really
Wow.
great place. And I would assume it's okay and natural maybe
Mhm.
to have different ways to want to like process I don't know, the coming down off of the high. I don't know what you would call that.
Yeah, so we just call it, I guess, coming down from the high, or aftercare, and a lot of us
Aftercare.
think immediately after sex, you go pee, right? Or you go shower. But I think it's important, especially depending on the intensity of what happens, because certainly sex is not limited to vanilla, right?
Right.
It can be, intense kink or BDSM scenes. And even in kink and BDSM, it's not always about penetration. There are lots of different things happening, sensation things happening. So I think it's healthy to come back down to that calm. And I think cuddling, holding each other, talking to each other, providing reassurance, or if it could be just talking about what happened. I think that could be really healthy for our brains to remember that even in those intense moments, we are still safe, and we're secure. So I think it's important to really focus on connection. And if we shower together. I think that is a really good option for couples as well. And I mean, I want to leave it open. So I wonder what maybe your ideas, and what are some things that you enjoy doing after.
Yeah, no, I do think the cuddling is
Mhm.
is nice. And like I hadn't really put a word to what that is, but it is like a safe, secure
Mhm.
feeling of
Yeah.
connectedness, that
Mhm.
oneness maybe
Yeah.
is a good way to put it too. Kind of coming back down slowly into that safe place. Oh, I like that. And I would think that's pretty common for most people when
I
they're coming
we
off.
we think that, but I think for some persons it can be really disconnected because maybe they have not discussed, or maybe the emotions are not involved. And I think now that we're coming to a place where a lot of persons are sexually liberated, it could look like so many different things for different people, right? It could be a one night stand and then you just head out the door. It can be so many different things, because sex is not always attached to love, as we know now. Some people would rather just have a sexual relationship and that be it. But I'm glad that you brought that up. And even I know you had talked about even cleanup, right? Because I mean that's
Mhm.
important too. I think we can still be connected by helping each other clean up, wiping. Those are things that you can still do together, taking turns. You do me, I do you, or whatever that is, and still show care and love while doing that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is such a beautiful thing. That's why I love talking about all of these intimate pieces, because we don't spend time talking about them a lot of times as couples. I don't know that it's a good thing to talk about what didn't work after sex. Is that like a different conversation at another time?
Yeah, so I heard like experts, certainly people who have done this for so many years, they say to discuss it outside of the bedroom, right? Because we want to make sure that it's being handled with care. I also advocate for safe words, right? Having words that you can use during sex to indicate if this is good, if we should pause, if we should stop. And that is healthy, right? Whatever it is, it can be, for me, I like pineapples, right? Some people like oranges, some people like red, green, yellow. So having some safe words, so we're still communicating in the moment. And of course, communicating, you can make sounds, you can suddenly say things in the moment, right? That's appropriate if you're not going to be like lecturing, but, there's certain things you can do verbally or non-verbally that can indicate, well, hey, I don't like this so much, or can we stop, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What about when we come into the sexual space? We all come with our own stuff. And sometimes body image. I'm sure for men just as much as women, we're in that space where, oh my gosh, we have this fear of, is somebody going to be judging my body? Are they evaluating my body? Most of the time they probably aren't, but we get in that space and then it kind of messes with the whole experience.
Yeah, but I think we can certainly talk about our insecurities. I think if it's someone you trust, you can certainly say, hey, I probably don't like certain things about myself, and you could be working on it, right? But maybe you don't like sex with the lights on because you have this little thing wherever that you're not comfortable with, and you can certainly talk about it. And I think for a partner, even hearing that, it could be something that you adore, right? If it's her tummy that she's insecure about, maybe especially after having kids or multiples, right? She might feel insecure about that. Show that love. You can kiss it, you can caress it, you can help her feel good about it, and also honoring that she has this because, she has gone through the process of conceiving and carrying a baby for 9 months and suddenly just giving birth. So I think it could be a way to really adore that. But for people who are not in, heterosexual relationships, I think that could also be a good opportunity to embrace those parts, especially if someone has shared that it's really a place where they feel insecure, And I think definitely talking about it and getting to a place where, you can both feel comfortable with exploring it and sharing those intimate moments, even if this exists.
What I'm thinking about as we're talking is partners that are in some sort of relationship where you are talking about things that are important to you, or you're feeling safe to communicate your insecurities and that kind of thing.
And what I'm seeing in just trends is, even for those people who come in with some type of religious baggage, I think even in the abstinence phase, because certainly some people still abstain until marriage, so there's no talking. I think there could be more talking. Even if we're abstaining, we can talk about what we want to try out later on, or we can talk about our differences, our values. I think what I really hate is that we never talked about sex, and now we're married, and now we're figuring out the things, right? The things that I think we should have even known before we made the decision to see if we're sexually compatible. I think for a lot of relationships, and that is so surprising when I think about it, because oftentimes it's attraction and chemistry and all that get us together. But it seems as if a lot of times sexual compatibility is the last thing we look at, and that tends to be the thing that really breaks up relationships, when desires are different and one person is not into the thing that we're into. So I think it's healthy to even talk about that when we're abstaining and waiting for marriage.
Yeah,
I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, because I do, I think everything comes back to communication. I wish that we as parents felt more comfortable having those conversations around sex, about sex, that it's okay. And I think the body too, like not shaming the body, being comfortable with being naked, and that our bodies are all different.
I think a lot of parents fear that if I am talking about it, that means it's giving them the red light. But I think more than anything, our children want to hear from us, right? I mean, we were there too, right? So suddenly just little things like providing privacy if they want to explore themselves, and teaching them, not just all the prevention education, but sex can be a beautiful thing when you go about it and when you try it. I think a lot of us have this idea that it's supposed to be painful, and it's, and yes, it's awkward and it could be messy and it can be all these things, but it can be beautiful, and I think even that idea of sex is painful. I think for a lot of us, even on our first time, we're so tense, right? We're not even understanding, like, this would really feel good if we just relax. And oh my God, there's so much there. But I think it starts with parents. And like you said, that body positivity is so important. Because I know from where I'm from, there are all sorts of names for our private parts, right? No one ever uses, unless it's in a clinical sense, the word vulva or vagina. And I think empowering people with that is really healthy.
Mhm.
Also, to prevent them from abuse, because I think if we know that this is, this is not a cookie or whatever it is, we're
Yeah.
more empowered to speak up if someone is randomly touching our cookie, right? Which is also our vulva. So I think there's so much there. But it starts with parenting, our parenting style. And I'm pretty open. I mean, I'm not doing the most in front of my kids, but I have an 11-year-old. I mean, he knew we were trying to have another baby, so he was aware that we didn't just magically get a flock with a baby, right? We had to have sex to have this brother of his that is 2 years old. So I think just even communicating that and not hiding that, just basic science or biology, right?
Exactly.
Even as sex therapists, I think one of the areas I want to go is to support parents in having those conversations. Because I think it can be hard to articulate the words and put it together really nicely in a way that is not shaming, but it's also not saying, okay, now just go do it, right? You just want to make sure that they have the tools that they need. Because they'll find it in the streets, they'll find it from their friends, they'll find it on the internet. And I think we're in a time now that it's a click away. Like, I can just switch on whatever websites and I can see what it looks like. And that's not always realistic. A lot of that is just adult entertainment. And, as we talk about self-care and aftercare and all that, a lot of that is not shown in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the primary source of the education that a lot of kids are getting. And it's not showing these things. So when I go into a scene or into a sexual relationship, I'm thinking this is what it's supposed to look like, right? There is a script that I need to follow, and somehow I will find pleasure along the way.
Right. Right. I'll figure that piece out as I get there. Yeah. No, it's fascinating. It's amazing how we come to sex and figuring it all out. It's so important for us to know ourselves because then we can bring ourselves in 100% openly,
Yeah.
sharing what we like, what we're open to, what we're absolutely not open to, but being comfortable
Yeah.
saying that. And that's a hard place to get to.
Yeah, but I think we're making a lot of progress. I think the advent of social media, and we have a lot of professionals who have pages dedicated to that. And now we have podcasts, and even that people can listen to on their own time. I like that. I like having a space where someone can decide, I'll listen to this in my private time and not feel, any type of way about it. So I think we're getting to a really good place in sexual education, but certainly we wish it was happening in schools, but it's not. It's not comprehensive. It's just prevention. I think we need more than that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, let's talk a little bit about how people can connect with you because I know you do a little podcast of your own. You are a therapist in Texas, and I just want to give you a moment to share how everyone can kind of follow you and connect with you.
Yeah, so right now I have the podcast, Her Sexual Space, where I interview other professionals, more seasoned professionals who have done a lot of this work, and we've touched on all the topics from sexual desire, sexual affirmations, because I think we need affirmations ourselves to actually feel good about our bodies. So we talk about that, consensual non-monogamy, threesomes, all the things. And I think my latest episode was sex and disabilities. So that's even a place where there's not a lot of conversation, because we think a lot of people who are disabled are, non-sexual. So I love that episode because we just debunk a lot of these myths. So certainly that's what I'm working on right now. I am in the process of developing my own private practice. So that'll be coming soon, in the next 2 months, I hope. But yeah, so I am at Her Sexual Space Podcast on Instagram. We have a website, www.hersexualspace.com. So that's where I reside right now.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's great. So if anybody is looking to just dive in and learn a little bit more, give a listen to the podcast. There's some really good stuff on there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's really nice that we can have these conversations, and it can be sex positive.
Yeah, I think it's so important to just normalize it and talk about it in a way that's educational and informative. Just it's a frank conversation about things we all do.
Yeah. We're human.
Right, absolutely.
So our population on Earth keeps growing, but this is how it's growing. I just don't understand the mixed relationship that we have with sex. And we know it's happening because population is increasing, but
we're all obviously doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Janice, I think this is a great place to wrap up. I want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and just thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cassie. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. All right. Well, to everyone out there, thank you for tuning in, listening. Stay safe, and I will see you all next week.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button to follow us and receive new episodes each week. If you really enjoy the podcast and you're feeling generous, please hit the donate button. We work hard to create original content and keep the podcast ad-free.